We're going to go over to ESPN, look at the 15 most dropped players here in Week 7, see whether or not we should be dropping them, picking them up, or be looking at them as prey for the rest of the season as a future pickup. That being said, you do need to click that subscribe button right now. Tap it with your finger on your phone, click it with your mouse, whatever you got to do, because we're doing deep dives off the waiver wire, helping you set those lineups. We're going deep on these player evals and everything else. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, stop missing out. But let's look at these 15 dropped players on ESPN. Let's see these top guys, see what we want to do with them. And first off, it's Tank Dell. He's been out due to an injury, has not been scoring fantasy points in your lineup. Kind of makes sense due to that standpoint, but he is running a lot of routes when he's on the field, seeing target share. He had a big week 2 and big week 3. Things were on the come up. CJ Stroud's been looking good. Looks like he's sitting on waivers in a lot of leagues right now due to bye weeks, due to people having to fill lineups, and he's not on IR. He's got the O on his tag there, so that means it's hard to keep him on your roster. I look for him to be a trendy pickup for the back half of the season. See what you can get with him. See what you can do on the back half. Maybe he comes back and scores more fantasy points down the line. See what you can do with Tank Dell. If he's sitting there on waivers, you may want to take a look. But again, you don't know when he's going to be back being productive. So it is a flyer, but it's a flyer that you know that can be productive. We saw in week 2 and week 3. Now we're looking at Tutu Atwell. This makes sense because he's losing target share to Cooper Kupp. Cooper Kupp came back. He's running with the targets. Tutu's less dependable now. He started this season hot. Was a hot waiver wire claim, but we all knew Cooper Kupp was coming back. We all knew Cooper Kupp was going to be the guy, but still maybe in plus matchups, he can give you something. I don't look for him to be a pickup really because he's not going to be a dependable option. You're not going to know when to put him into your lineups. Might be great for DFS though in those plus matchups because he could go off on any given week due to the sheer nature of this offense. But if you do need a wide receiver to throw in a lineup, if you're hurting that bad, maybe if the Rams are in a good matchup, you can pick them up, throw them in, see what happens. But that's only if you're hurting really bad. I think the market's doing the correct thing right here and really turning and burning with the waiver wire with Atwell. Now we're looking at Jahan Dotson. Really bad season right now. He's only seeing 5 to 6 targets a game, and they're short targets as well. Not really getting you the volume, not really getting the fantasy production, and is a player that is easy to drop. He's a huge drop candidate, seeing 1 target, 5 target, 9 targets. He's not really doing anything with it. He only has 1 game with over double-digit PPR fantasy points, so if you need to drop him to play the waiver wire, a good guy to get, also a good guy to pick up too, because he could hit on any given week. But the odds are saying, hey, it's hard to count on him. That being said, Michael Wilson is a rookie who's been up and down all season, but he is trending up as he's getting more and more workload in the offense. He's running more routes per game, but it's hard to depend on the Arizona Cardinals. It's really hard for them to buoy 2 wide receivers there or more with Hollywood Brown getting the production, but he is going to be off and on for the rest of the season. Look for him to run more routes per game in the back half of the season as well. In plus matchups, you may want to look at him, but if he's on waivers, not the biggest deal. He's also rostered in just 11% of leagues. Now we're looking at Treylon Burks. He's been hurt. He can't score fantasy points if he's hurt, and even when he's back, he's hard to trust because this is a low-volume passing offense. You don't want the wide receiver 2 on a low-volume passing offense. He can hit. He does have upside due to athleticism, draft capital, and everything else. It's not happening, though, unless he's back on the field, taking over. That's not likely right now, and really, you can just get him off waivers after he hits if that's going to happen. Now we're looking at Juju Smith-Schuster. Easy drop. Should not be rostered in this many leagues even. He's seeing some opportunities, but honestly, not enough targets, not enough volume in this offense to really give him fantasy production. Easy drop here. Now we're looking at Quentin Johnson. He's a lottery ticket. So if you can handle a lottery ticket, cool, roster him. If you can't, drop him. If you can't wait for the back end of the season knowing that there's a good chance he's going to bust on you, don't pick him up. But if you want a lottery ticket at wide receiver, he's probably a good one to get. One, you got the Chargers offense. You got a first-round wide receiver. You guys a little bit explosive. But his production profile coming out of college, what we saw on tape, lets us know that he's a very iffy prospect as well. But again, think of him in the terms of a lottery ticket. Could go boom. Could be just a piece of paper in the trash. So think about Quentin Johnson in that light and value him as so. Now we're looking at Odell Beckham. Don't roster him. don't roster him. He's rostered in too many leagues right now. Don't roster him. 4 targets, 4 targets, 4 targets, 3 targets. You don't want him. You don't want that. He's not scoring points. He's rostered in almost 50% of leagues in ESPN. Drop him on waivers. Move on to somebody else. Now we're looking at Zay Jones. Has not been healthy for a lot of the year. Has shown a lot of promise, but he needs to be on the field. It's hard to keep him in your roster. But a guy, once he's back being healthy, you may want to look at because he was getting volume, especially last year. This offense can push fantasy points to their wide receivers and ancillary jabronis. So a guy you may want to be looking at in weeks like 10 onward. Now we're looking at Romeo Doubs. Honestly, he's going to be volatile. The Packers wide receivers are going to be volatile. Rostered in just 52% of leagues. Did score well in week 3 and week 4. Again, he's a guy that you want on the back end of your roster and you're playing the matchups with, but you're not going to trust every week. He shouldn't be dropped all the time. But again, if you're playing waivers and you're going back and forth playing hot potato, I can kind of see why. Sky Moore's a droppable player, but you also want a piece of this Chiefs passing game, so it kind of makes it hard. Plus, the Chiefs has a juicy schedule. They're going to be in a lot of high-volume games. They added Mecole Hardman there, so it's going to be even more sketchy in the future. It's hard playing the matchups with Moore because you don't know which Chiefs wide receiver is going to hit. Mostly it's been Rice, but again, if you don't want to play that game, drop them. If you want to play that game, play the matchups and hope for the best, or if you're hurting, pick them up and see what happens. But more than likely, you're not going to trust Sky Moore. Now we're looking at Mike Williams. Pour some liquor out. I don't know why people are still dropping him. He should be already dropped and gone. But there he is. So I added another player to the top 15 list. So we're looking at 16 wide receivers today. Now we're looking at Brandon Cooks. Very volatile player right now. Scored well against the Chargers. I see a lot of people picking him up this week as fantasy gamers are chasing the fantasy points. But again, not getting enough volume. Michael Gallup's getting volume as well. Those guys are siphoning each other's workload. 4 targets a game in the last 3, 7 in week 3. Michael Gallup's getting some work done. We're getting some deep targets off and on. Again, he's hard to trust, but in plus matchups, you may want to throw him in if you're hurting. Now we're looking at Jaden Reed. Same thing as Doubs. The opportunity's not there with 3 wide receivers splitting up the workload. He's going to be off and on. You might see him step up in the back half of the season. He's a rookie wide receiver playing the slot. Something may happen to other wide receivers. You know how football is. But again, you're playing hot potato with them, off and on rosters, off and on in lineups, because you want to play the matchups with this type of wide receiver, see what happens. Now we're looking at Darnell Mooney. You don't trust Bears. They can't fuel multiple wide receivers in this offense. He might have a splash game here and there because he's a speedster, has 4.3 speed, can get downfield, can command air yards. But again, you're not trusting him. Good to go on waivers. Now we're looking at Allen Lazard on the Jets, low volume passing offense. He's getting opportunity here and there, but it's not enough to trust. It's not enough to be reliable. It's not enough to be consistent. Good on waivers. Those are the 15 top dropped wide receivers on ESPN. We actually covered 16 because they always got an injured jabroni on there that's on AR. So we got to add a couple more to make it right. That being said, some of these guys we're picking up. Some of these guys we're playing matchups with still. Some of these guys we're leaving on waivers. Let me know who you dropped this week. Drop that in the comments below. Make sure you hit that subscribe button on the way out. Catch you on the next